Good evening and welcome to another episode of our Real Stories live interview. Tonight we are going to chat with Angie and Louis. Angie is a teacher and Louis is a digital marketer. They are, ordinary Australians like you and I. They've been renting for a while and managed to save up a deposit to purchase a home. They did that earlier this year, fulfilling a dream that Angie had since she was 19. So in this episode, we're going to chat to them about the mindsets, the beliefs, and how they saved up for the deposit and the kind of research they did before going out there into the marketplace and actively looking for a property. I hope you enjoyed this episode. So let's get straight into it and welcome Angie and Louis. Hi Angie, hi Louis, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And before we actually begin, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me properly.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, there's a bit of a time delay, but I think, we're all sweet. All right, cool. That's perfect. So I guess before we get straight into, the whole, property experience and stuff like that, a little bit of an icebreaker. Can both of you maybe share with us two things that you love and one thing that you absolutely hate?
All right. I'll go first. So, well, the first thing that I love is spaghetti bolognese. The next thing is hazelnut ice cream. And the thing that I hate and cannot stand are spiders. I hate them.
So you love hazelnut and spaghetti?
I love hazelnut and spaghetti, but I hate spiders.
Okay,
Yeah.
definitely. I hate. Oh yeah, I'll start with what I hate first, which is bananas. I just don't like bananas. It's the texture. I love cats.
What else do you love?
And I love YouTube.
YouTube.
YouTube videos. And Nessa.
All right.
three.
So Louis is the one. So Louis is the one who loves cats. Not you,
Oh,
Angie.
I love cats as well, but I knew that you would say cats, so I didn't want us to seem like crazy cat people.
All right, cool. So how many cats do you have at home?
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
Just one. Okay, cool. What's his or her name?
Her name is Snickers.
Yeah, like a chocolate bar.
Ah, Snickers. Okay, nice. Cool. My wife loves cats, but I'm allergic to cats, so we don't have a cat.
Oh no!
Yeah. So maybe for her next birthday, I can maybe borrow your cat for her to spend a day with Snickers. We'll talk about that another time. Cool. Yeah. So once again, thank you for joining us. So the objective of today's show is really to take our viewers behind the scenes and go through the mindsets, the belief, what you guys had to do before even going and inspecting properties, looking properties up on realestate.com.au or any of the major portals. So maybe let's start with Angie. When we caught up prior, you mentioned that you always dreamt about owning a home. Do you mind sharing how this actually started? And in your opinion, who was your biggest influence?
Yeah. So I guess I guess the first was actually the Australian, like the dream, like the Australian culture was like, you have to buy a house. I was like, oh, okay, like I'll buy a house. That's such a good idea. But I think that the actual inspiration, motivation came from the block. Whenever the block started, I was so obsessed with watching the show and having the goal of, well, I want to have my own home one day so then I can bash down walls if I want to and paint the walls and do all the kind of things that I want to do to my own home. So I guess it kind of started from the block, and that was kind of my inspiration as well and motivation to save up that money for my deposit. And I was always kind of like telling myself when I was renting that, the place that I was renting was just a house, but I wanted to make a home. So to me, my belief is that they're different things. Like, you just live in a house and you have no emotional connection to it. But I wanted to live in a place that was mine and that I owned and was a safe place for me and that I had some sort of emotional connection to. So I think that that's kind of where it started. And then it sort of snowballed from there. When I was like 19 and 20, even just looking at realestate.com and getting, so many ideas for all these different houses. And I think that's where the love came from, and the passion for actually owning my own home.
Cool. And how about you, Lewis? Did you have something like that happen to you, or was it just was it just something that you thought, okay, I'm getting older now, I need to do something?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of one of those things like in Australia, I guess owning a house is almost like a religion. Like everyone talks about it at parties and like dinner tables and stuff. So it's kind of just assumed that one day you should buy a house, which I kind of like thought as well. And then I kind of looked into it, like should I rent or buy? I looked at like the math long term, and then I kind of did decide that eventually I would like a house. And I was in share houses for years and years, so I was kind of getting over that as well. And also, just sharing a house with Angie as well. And I'm previously a draftsman by trade. So I like love design, interior design. And with renting, you just can't do those things. So that was also like another thing that I was really looking forward to with buying a house, being able to paint the walls, design it how you want, and like really make it, like Angie said, your home rather than a house.
All right, cool, interesting. So I didn't know you were a drafts person before.
Yeah. Just not for very long, but yeah.
In your previous life.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So Angie, you're saying that at the age of 19, you already like started dreaming about this, thinking about wanting to own your own home and things like that. Did either of you have like a fixed year or a goal that you told yourself, by this age or by this year, I want to own my own home? Did any of you have that?
I definitely did. One of my good friends, she actually bought her first home when she was 22. So I was kind of like, wow, that is really young. But like, I was so envious of her to be able to buy her own home at 22, because there was no way that I was ready when I was at the age of 22. But my original goal was 25. And then I went on a fair few holidays. So then that got bumped up a few more years. And then the next goal was actually to buy with my sister. However, then I met Lewis. So then that idea kind of changed. And I think the only age goal that I ever had was 25, but I always kind of wanted to be a homeowner before the age of 30. Not sure why. Just the numbers, I think. Just a numbers thing.
All right. And did you do it before 30?
Yes. Yes. I think we were 28.
All right.
Oh, no, 28.
All right. Congratulations. You did it under 30. Well done. Yeah. So you're saying, let me give you an applause. Where's that? Okay, let me play some. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So you're saying initially the plan was to buy something with your sister, and somewhere along the way, that became Lewis. So what happened? And so what happened, and how? What made you change your mind? Because you would think buying something with your sister is probably more secure than buying something with your boyfriend. Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
So how did you make that conclusion, and how did that whole thing happen?
So I was talking to my mum and I was saying like, oh, like I would like to buy by myself, but I'm not game enough because I didn't have a full-time job actually until I was 27. I wasn't actually a full-time teacher until I was the age of 27. So I never actually had a stable income. So, and my sister she's also a teacher and she had been teaching 5 years at that time. And it was my mum's idea, like if you split the deposit, you buy a house, you live in it for 12 months and then you sell it and then you share the equity or something that she said. It was more just to actually get into the property market rather than living with her forever, because I'm sure she'd actually love to do that. But yeah, it was more like a stepping stone to then be able to buy my own house on my own. But buying with my sister would be a good introduction, I guess. And because she won't ever go away because she's my sister.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, excellent. And from my understanding, you, your sister, and Lewis were actually living together. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. That's correct. Yes.
Okay, cool. And at what age did both of you like move out of home and start renting by yourself?
So I originally moved out. The very first time I moved out of home was when I was 21. It was just my 21st birthday. And I moved in with a very good friend of mine. And we lived together for 2 years. And then she got a job in the city and she no longer wanted to live in our local area. So she moved out and then I moved home for a couple of years. And then I moved back out when I was 24 with my sister. And then I'd been out of home since the age of 24. But I know you're a little bit different.
Yeah, I left home when I was 17, or my mum and stepdad were like, "Oh, do you want to move out?" I think they're a bit over me at the house all the time. So I started just having a share house with a couple of friends, and then I've kind of been out of house ever since then.
They wanted to get rid of
They
you.
want to get rid of me. They want to get rid of me.
All right, cool. I guess the reason why I'm asking that is all just to, I guess, provide a bit of context because saving a deposit while you're living at home is, very, very achievable. The longer you live at home, the faster you can actually save up the deposit. But the moment you start moving out, you've got the rent, obviously, but you've also got all the bills, your water, electricity, phone bills, whatnot. And just life is very different when you're living on your own. So can you just share when did things actually start getting serious about saving for your property?
Well, for me personally, the time when I first got serious was when I got my first full-time job, which was around 20 or 21, I believe. So for whatever reason, I just thought to myself, I just better start saving money. I wasn't exactly sure what it would be for. I did have an idea at the back of my head it could be for a house. But ever since that age, I've just been like systematically putting money aside every week or fortnightly or as much as I can, just put it away slowly.
And I think for me, it was coming back from 2 very big holidays that I had and realizing that I had like no money left, but I still had the goal of buying a house. So then I had to, and I was still only working casual, like I was working just like a few hours a week, so I wasn't earning a lot of money, but I would continuously put amount into my savings account as long as it wasn't zero every fortnight. So I think probably the age of 26, so I was a fair few years later, because I had only ever had a casual job from the age of 14, 9 months up until I was 27. So I only ever worked casual, but I always worked weekends. So I was able to get those penalty rates and I tried to get as much as I could. So then I could put as much as I could into savings.
And you weren't just doing holidays, you were like at university.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was
at.
Yeah,
so
I was.
Work full time.
Yeah, it was not because I was lazy.
Yeah.
It's just because I was at uni from the age of 18 till the age of 26. So I was at uni for about 8 years,
Yeah.
a very long time.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? I can remember when I was, saving to buy my first property. Very often you save up and then something would happen or a holiday will come along and, you see that savings get depleted and sometimes it can be very demotivating. For many people, when it comes to buying a property, some people have just concluded that it's just beyond my reach. It's just impossible to save for a deposit. Did you at any point think of it that way? And I guess, can you just like take us through your mind and like what actually happened that made you believe? Because you're saying that you went for the holidays and you came down. When you came back, your savings were all gone. And I mean, what gave you the encouragement, I guess, to go ahead, save, and that it was still possible before 30? Because you came back from your holiday, you're saying at 27, right? Yeah, do you mind just sharing about that?
I think because, like, I mean, we're both pretty motivated. If we have a goal that we want to work towards, then that kind of motivates us a little bit. And like, if I didn't get the home by the time I was 30, that wasn't gonna, that wasn't gonna be shattered. I would just, maybe rearrange my financial situation and find a way on how I could, have additional funds into the deposit. But yeah, I think that. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for almost anything, like if you want it bad enough, like you'll just figure it out, and you'll be hungry, and you'll just come up with maybe different options that you maybe hadn't thought of previously. So for myself personally, when I was slowly saving up money, I was just so disenfranchised. I'm like, there's no way I could afford a house in Melbourne. It's just way too expensive. But at that time, I was only really looking at the inner suburbs of Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that's simply not possible. So instead of giving up, I kind of changed my perspective and I started looking at different options, maybe outer suburbs of Melbourne, maybe even Ballarat, maybe even different states altogether, where you like can get into the property market and not just stay with like the same mindset of just, this is where I want to live, and if nothing else, then I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So, changing the mindset, and also being like really motivated, like Andy said, and just having like a long-term mindset of like what you want, and then just slowly chipping away at it every week or month or year, and just slowly seeing those results like trickle into your account.
I think it's also about being flexible as well. Like, if you want to buy in a particular area, but it's not possible, you then maybe need to, extend your savings goal for maybe the next couple of years, or look into other suburbs, because especially if you're a first home buyer, it's just your first home.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't plan on having that home for the rest of your life, then I think you need to be a bit more flexible and more, what's the other word? Not flexible, it's like flexible. Like open-minded, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, you need to be more flexible and open-minded to the other possibilities, because like, you might be thinking about a particular suburb, but a house that you might love might be in the suburb next to it, and that could potentially be like your dream house or something.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to have an open, broad mind and think of all the other possibilities, rather than just being stuck on one particular area. Because then I think that if you're stuck on one particular area and you have a house that's a multi-million and you're a first home buyer, that's most of the time not realistic.
Yeah.
So,
and I feel like a lot of the times, like, it can vary from family to family, but if you're living at home and say your parents have a 3, even 4-bedroom house, then that's kind of what you're used to maybe growing up. So that's something that you actively look for when you want to buy a house. But if you're likely to speak to your parents, then 9 times out of 10, they'll say, our first house was an absolute dump. Like, we couldn't afford anything. We were sleeping on the floor. So
yeah.
I feel like you actually have to listen to other people and what their first experiences were like, and be like, oh, perfect. So you just have to, yeah.
And I think that's what we looked for as well. Like, when we actually get to talking about the house, but we didn't look for a perfect house, because what would be the point? Because this potentially isn't our forever home.
Yeah.
This is just our entry point into the market.
Yeah, just a stepping stone.
All right, excellent. When it comes to saving for the deposit, or just getting ready to take that first step, just like what you guys did, having dual income is very important. So like in my case, it was only possible when my wife and I were earning, and we could actually afford to pay the mortgage. or get the loan. So in your case, I guess you did the same thing where you pull your funds together and did that. But you guys are not married yet. Many people are probably in your situation. Do you mind just sharing with us? Is it a good idea? Obviously, you would have had some awkward or possibly difficult conversations. Do you mind sharing with us, if it is a good idea to get into the market, what were some of those conversations that you had, whether it's awkward or difficult questions, and that you think is important for anyone who is thinking of, buying something with their brother or, their sister or their partner? If you could touch on that, that'll be great.
I think that if you're wanting to buy a house, that's most of the time your biggest financial expense. So if you're wanting to buy it with someone, I think it's really important that you are extremely open and honest with your whole financial history. So being really clear about, you don't even have to tell them like exactly what you earn, but a very close amount to what you do earn. And I think that we did that very well. Like, we don't care about talking about money to us is fun. Like, we're not shy. We earn different amounts, and like, we don't care about that kind of thing. But we definitely spoke about our finances and what we had in the bank, and what we had spent our money on previously. And I think that if you are wanting to buy a home with someone, you definitely need to have those conversations before you even think about beginning to look, because you're buying a house with someone for potentially the next 30 years. So more difficult conversations will potentially come up. But if you start the conversation early, then you can get on top of anything even earlier. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like you almost need to have those prerequisite conversations about your personal finance with your girlfriend or partner before you even think about or talk about buying a house together.
Yeah.
Because say for example, like, I'm a big spender and you're a big saver, then it's going to be a really tough compatibility when it comes to possibly saving for a deposit or paying the mortgage. Because if you're not both on the same kind of wavelength for saving or paying the mortgage, then it's going to be a really tricky transition, I think.
But I think it's also good to have an understanding. Okay, well, who's paying for what? Like, are we going 50-50 in this mortgage, or are you paying 60 and I'm paying 40%? Like, I think that that's something that you really need to understand, especially if you're not married and you don't have combined finances.
Yeah.
Because we don't combine our bank accounts. We don't have a need to, and we don't really want to. Yeah. But we had those conversations. Okay, well, how would the mortgage payments work? Would we go equal? Like, would we do 50-50, or would someone pay a little bit more? But we decided that it's our home, so we are both paying half each.
Yeah. And you can even go a step further and be like devil's advocate and kind of play out the worst case scenarios of what could happen. So the first one could be say I lost my job for a year. What would happen? Would
I be happy to support you?
Would you help me out with paying the mortgage if I just went broke tomorrow? Or even the next step, say we broke up, what would happen to the house? Who would potentially live in the house? The ownership of the house, all that kind of stuff. So really get into the nitty gritty for possible situations that arise. So if they ever do arise and things happen, you're mentally prepared.
Yeah.
And you kind of have a framework of we've spoken about this, we can go down that pathway or something like that.
And especially talking about it when you are in a good place, I think is good to both have an understanding, because then if which I hope it won't, but if that time comes, then we've already had that conversation and we already have that mutual respect. We already respect each other enough to say, okay, well, no, we actually did have that conversation and this is how it's going to go. Not that it always works out that way, but I think that that's a good thing for people to do before they buy a house.
And you can just have a couple of conversations out at lunch, or just in a casual setting. It doesn't have to
Dinner.
be intense or anything. Just casual. You don't have to full on shine a spotlight on your spouse and be what's your financial history like? It's just a casual conversation.
Well, we did it over dinner, over dumplings at dinner one time.
Yeah. So it's super casual.
Yeah, make it fun.
Yeah.
Cool. So was the what was the most so you said you played devil's advocate, right? So what in your discussion, what was like the worst case scenario, and what did you guys agree?
So the worst case scenario would definitely be that we were no longer together. And I think that we would both we would sell the house, and
Yeah.
neither one of us would
Would
live
live
in
in it,
here,
yeah.
because for us, I think it would be, because we did renovate this house ourselves, I think that there would be too much of an emotional connection there. So we would sell the house and then split the
Split the proceeds.
split the
Just
profits.
straight down the middle.
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, I think that that's a great idea, because if you have both agreed on what the worst case scenario is, and you guys are happy with it, then I guess you can get into that whole agreement with a lot more confidence. Just on a separate, additional question to this, did you guys like separate, put together a separate contract apart from the sales and purchase contract, or was it just that agreement that you had?
No, we didn't, but we did think about
Yeah, we did think about
we,
it.
we thought about it, and we actually did a little bit of research into that kind of thing, but that's extremely costly. Kind of, it's not like a prenup, but
It's like the Australian version where you get a lawyer on each side and they write up the mutual contract where you have like your individual terms.
yeah, and we did look at that, because now we would be classified as de facto, which have the same legal rights as a married couple. And we did look into it, and we might potentially look into it again in the future. But for us right now, it wasn't quite.
It wasn't like a priority.
Yeah, because it is quite expensive, because you do have to pay for the lawyers, and lawyers are not cheap.
Yeah.
So that's something that we could potentially look at down the line, but as of right now, not at this stage.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thanks for sharing. You guys have been very open to discuss almost anything. So really, thank you for that. Cool. I just thought of something. Because this is a question I get asked a lot. From friends who have never purchased before. And with everything that is happening in COVID, people come and ask me, is now a good time to buy? Should I wait? I'm actually thinking of buying. Should I wait? So for any of your friends who were to come to you and they asked you, Ange and Lewis, do you think now is a good time to buy? Or what's your opinion?
I think that it is a good time to buy if you and your partner, or whoever you're buying with, you both have a stable income, and that you know that you will have a stable income for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I feel like it's always like a conversation, depending on how you're thinking. Like, it's never going to be the right time to buy, depending
on circumstances,
on the way your mindset is. So like 6 months ago, we could have been like, oh, that was the perfect time to buy. Let's just wait a little bit longer because the prices have increased. Let's just wait a little bit longer until they drop again.
Because it did actually happen to us.
Yeah.
Last year, the prices did drop in.
When we were initially looking at the first month.
Yeah, in like May, June, July, I think they dropped.
And then as we were looking,
they started to increase.
So we were kind of thinking, do we want to pay a little bit extra, or do we want to potentially wait another 6 months or a year for the prices to potentially drop and then enter the market?
Yeah.
But I think, like a lot of investors out there, they say that time in the market is better than trying to time the market. So that's something that I personally kind of think of when purchasing an asset as well.
Yeah, and especially with times like COVID, I think that like your income is what you need to focus on, especially for if you're wanting to buy a house, because if you're in the hospitality industry, and it's fantastic that it's now opened up, but because the hospitality industry is very unstable at the moment, then you have to think about in the future, like what happens, like what if you then have to play again devil's advocate, like what if something would happen. Whereas if you have a stable job, like myself, I'm a teacher, so like kids are always going to need to be educated. So even if I did lose my job, there would still be the potential of me getting another one semi easily.
Yeah.
Semi easily.
Yeah.
but semi-easily, I think, is something that you can work with. um, so we kind of touched a bit about deposit, but I've got a few more questions I'd like to ask about, how you guys saved up for the deposit. Did you guys have like a serious saving plan, a very disciplined saving plan, if you like? Did you have like, what was the setup? Did you have a separate account that you just, transferred money even before you started spending it? Or how did you go about, saving up on a more serious level, I guess?
Well, I guess before we met, we were both pretty serious savers.
Mm.
Like we're both quite frugal from heart. So I guess we both had a savings plan that we were doing individually
Mm.
before we even met. So maybe we can talk about like savings things later on. But I guess once we had the topic of buying a house, then we kind of combined our savings for the deposit that we could put towards the house.
Mm.
Yeah.
But like, no, we didn't really
All
have
right,
like
cool.
a
Yeah.
super strict one. Super strict
All
one.
right.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you
like
mind?
yeah.
Sorry, because of the lag, I think yeah, we're kind of like crossing. Um, do you mind sharing how much you guys were able to save for in a month, and for how long did you have that saving plan before? Was it 2 years? Was it 3 years before you were ready to actually go out and start looking?
Well, for myself personally, I had saved up almost for a deposit, or like almost half a deposit before I met Angie. So I was just kind of waiting to pull the trigger for a house. So that was kind of what I had
Mm.
been doing.
I mean, I've been saving kind of ever since I had a job. It was just the big holidays that seemed to always take the massive chunks out, but I was always able to put at least something in the account. And because I was working casually, it wasn't like a massive amount of money, but as long as it was consistent. And I
Yeah,
think we both have the belief of like you pay yourself first
yeah,
and then everything else comes after. So, like splurge is only whatever you have left. I think that we both have the belief of you need to put your money into your savings first
yeah,
and then you deal with everything else a little bit later.
yeah. And I was working full time from about 20 to 25, and I studied for 2 years. So during that 2 year period, I was working casually. So my savings was pretty much, just stagnant. And then it wasn't until I got another full time job until it started picking up again. So if you were to look at like a graph over the past few years, it would be like very
Yeah, same.
zigzaggy to get to where we are now. Like it's
Yeah.
not just a steady line. Like it goes up and down. Like you go on holidays, change careers, study. Like it's not always a perfect ride to like save the deposit.
And there wasn't ever like an amount, I guess,
Yeah,
because because things pop up and because I wasn't working like Monday to Friday, I would own like whatever I would have, like let's say it's, I don't know, like $200 out of my fortnightly pay. Well, that would then immediately go to my savings.
yeah,
So it was over a long period of time that we did save up for the deposit. So we didn't really save aggressively for like 2 to 3 years. It was like a long term,
yeah,
but like small amounts long term.
yeah.
If that, as long as that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, bite-sized pieces is a lot better, so it's not too stressful for you, I guess. And you can still live your life. You can still, have that occasional holidays here and there. So that's great. So when it came to the actual deposit, did you save up 10%, 15%, 20%? Did you have to pay LMI? Some people say, do not pay LMI. You're just wasting money. You're throwing money down the drain. What did you guys do? And yeah, do you mind just sharing that?
Yeah. So when we were looking for a house, we settled on a budget of $600,000 maximum. So we had actually saved up only just a 20% deposit for a $600,000 house. But when it actually came to, doing like figuring out the math and like long term, if we did spend a 20% deposit, then we would almost have like nothing left.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that sleep at night factor. We could have done 20%, But if something was to happen after we got the house, then we'd be in a really bad situation as didn't really have something to fall back on. So that was kind of the decision for us to go from 20% down to 10%. And we've both read the Barefoot Investor, and he's a big advocate of saying, you know, if you can, you should always do 20%.
Yeah.
But when it actually came to our own personal situation, paying 10% was better because then that leaves a buffer if something was to happen, and it just kind of gives you that peace of mind as well.
Security.
Yeah, and we also did pay the LMI, which wasn't surprisingly that bad. And I know you do have to take into account that the LMI sometimes does go on top of the loan, so you're actually paying interest on the LMI, which does turn out to be quite a lot.
But like not even that much if you look at the math and you look 30 years down the line, it's not even that.
It's almost like double what you actually pay, or
yes.
sometimes triple.
So like, let's say the LMI is like $11,000, you'll end up paying $22,000. But for us, we would have rather have kept the other half of the 20% for that security. And because we also owned nothing.
Yeah.
Like when we were living with my sister, she owned everything. She owned the TV, the fridge, the couch, the table. We had nothing to our name.
Yeah.
So we then had to go out and apply and buy every single appliance, like plates, cups, fridges, couches, absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So again, like if we had done the 20%, we would be lying on the floor, like we'd be having nothing.
We'd be eating from banana leaves or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting that you mentioned that, because I guess I can actually relate to that. But in my case, when we bought our first home, we were moving out of our family home, and similar to you, we had nothing, right? We had to buy almost every single thing, from cutleries to everything, every single thing. And for us, unfortunately, to get the house that we wanted, we actually brought our savings down to zero. So there was literally nothing. But we knew that we could save it up. So what we did was we actually, I don't recommend this, by the way. So do not take this as advice. Do not do it. Actually, just don't do it. But I'll just share it anyway. So we actually heard from a friend what they did when they bought their property. So we actually did the exact same thing, where we maxed up. We increased our credit card limit. We went and bought everything over the weekend. We went to Harvey Norman and bought everything, and I think we got 18 months interest free or whatever, and we knew that within the next 12 months we could actually save everything up. So we bought everything on credit. What we could pay with cash, we bought with cash, but we basically depleted our savings down to zero to make that happen. And yeah, we pretty much bought everything interest free, and over the course of 12 months we paid everything up. But I do not recommend that, so don't do that. All right, cool. Thanks for sharing about that. So in the end, you did 10% deposit, and you got LMI on top of that, which I think is not such a bad idea, because if you think about it, if you buy a $500,000 property and you have 10% deposit, that is $50,000, right? So in order to save that other $50,000, it's probably going to take you a very long time, right? So if you weigh up the, whether you want to have your property now, and the price that you're paying is the LMI, which is, as you said, probably about 11,000 or whatever it was. So I guess that's an option for people out there. So you don't have to pay 20% in order to get into the property market. So cool. Now moving along to, I guess, the search, right? Even before the search, the research, in terms of what do you actually buy? Because based on what you guys were saying, it was not a forever property. It was something for you to get your feet into the property market. There are many ways to do that. Some people talk about rent vesting, where they buy a property just so that they get their foot in the market. But because when you buy a rental property, that kind of increases your income because you're getting rental, so that enables you to buy something a lot quicker. So that could have been a possible option. You could have purchased a land and house and land package, or you could have done what you did, an established home. Did you even consider the others? How did you decide on the type of property you should buy for your first property?
Well, I always kind of wanted to have my own, like my own property and live. Cousin, he always said to me that you buy where you can afford and you rent where you want to live, which I think is a really good like idea. Like if you want to live in the city, like you only ever want to live in the city, but you can't afford to buy in the city, maybe then you could buy an investment property out in the suburbs. I did like wonder if I wanted to have an investment property, but like for my very first home, I kind of wanted to live in it and for it to be mine. And then maybe down the future, like this might turn into our investment property, maybe down the line. Like it's open, like we're not closed to the idea. But I think that, yeah, for myself personally, for our very first home, I wanted to live in it for as long as we possibly could, because I didn't want to buy the house to then go and rent somewhere else.
Yeah,
I wanted to buy the house to live in it.
Yeah, 100%. And I had looked into rent investing a few years ago, but I didn't really have enough finances, or I possibly could have made it work. I didn't want that liability on my hands. If I was paying rent and having to pay mortgage, if something happened, I might have been in a tricky situation. So yeah, like Angie, I kind of decided on buying a house, and then potentially we could buy another house down the track, use the equity from this, maybe rent it out, or just sell it and buy another house down the track as well.
Because I don't think that we would maybe ever get rid of this house because we love it.
Yeah, so
it's our baby.
Yeah, we end up loving this house as well, like because we've put work into it. So yeah, we do end up loving it because it's like created a lot of memories and along the way. So
yeah.
Excellent, cool. By the way, we've got a message here on Facebook. I don't think it's there. Well, thank you, Auction Reporters, for the great video and report today. Actually, this is the vendor of a recent auction, so this is a bit off topic, but I thought I'll just acknowledge the message that just came through. Yeah, so Johnny just sold his property today, and it sold for a pretty good price. They are actually in Rowville. Not too far away from you guys.
Neighbors. Neighbors.
Yeah, so no longer. They sold under the hammer, so it's done. It's a done deal. So yeah, so we live streamed the auction, and yeah, I guess he's happy with the video, and he managed to watch it live. So congratulations, Johnny. Yeah, I hope you enjoy. Have a great weekend, and all the best in the next phase of your life. Cool.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Excellent. So yeah, that's a neighbor in Rowville in the city of Knox. All right. So coming back to our topic, right? So in terms of location, right? So you decided that this is a property that you wanted to live in, right? So I guess this is where the next question comes up, right? Do you set a budget and then decide what you can buy within the budget, or did you decide on the location first and found what you can buy in that location with your budget? Because if you're fixed with your budget, or if you're fixed with your location, then you have to sacrifice on the type of property. If you're fixed on the type of property, then you might have to sacrifice on the location. So which was the priority for you? And did that ever change? How did you decide where to buy and what to buy?
Yeah, I guess with us, like we mentioned earlier, we discussed each other's finances and stuff. So from that, we kind of figured out an amount that would be comfortable paying per month for a mortgage. So once you find out the amounts you're comfortable paying, then there's a few calculators online where you can kind of reverse engineer as to the amounts you can actually loan. So for us, I think we were comfortable with paying around $1,500 each per month maximum, and I think that worked out to be around a $600,000 maximum budget for buying a house. So that's the method that we used to figure out our budget, and then from there that allowed us to look in a wide range of areas for potential houses, as we had that kind of budget and amounts that we were willing to pay.
Yeah, and I think because we could have borrowed more, like we could have spent more on our mortgage, but because we both, we like to save and we want to do more things with our money, we still wanted to have enough left over that we could do those kind of things, like go on holidays, investing,
Yeah.
like all those kind of things. So just it was an amount that we were comfortable paying, even though we could have paid more to get like a bigger house, or in the suburb that we would have preferred, but we didn't.
Yeah, because I think if we were using that kind of mindset, we would have for sure spent more. If we were like, oh, we're only going to live in these 5 suburbs and nothing else, like we would have spent
way more,
10 to 30% more.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think I've just got a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap up this thing, and then we'll move on to the rapid fire questions if we can do that. So now you've decided on the amount of deposit. You've kind of like decided on what kind of property and the location you wanted to buy. You may have sacrificed that location to find something within your budget, but when it came to the actual search and when you started going out and looking for properties, how did you actually research on how much something is worth, how much to pay for a property? Did you look at sold prices? Did you attend auctions? Did you speak to real estate agents? Did you have an uncle or an auntie who is like an expert in the area? How do you go about researching prices before deciding how much you would pay for a property?
So the first thing that we did, it was more just for fun. After our conversation on, what were our, what did we want to buy? Like, when did we kind of want to buy? We actually went out to an auction and an inspection just to see the comparison on price and like what that kind of money would get us. So we actually, we jumped on realestate.com and had like a little bit of a look, and like just for fun, we went out to look and saw like, how an auction works and, what that kind of house would be worth. And then we went to another inspection, just to do a comparison as well within the same suburb as well, to see if we could afford in that area.
Yeah. And when we first started, we had no idea of valuations or suburb prices, but I guess every time we looked at houses on the weekend, we slowly grew up that knowledge of what's the actual value and what's the price of a house.
Yeah.
Going to auctions, going to open homes, looking on the sold listings on realestate.com.au is also really helpful for looking back, maybe even 6 months or a year on, seeing what the prices were like then, so you can compare them to today and kind of get a rough idea of whether the prices fluctuate or not.
Yeah.
All right, one last question before we get into the rapid fire. So I've lost that question. We might have to come back to that. I had that question and I've lost it. All right, cool. That's okay. We might come back to it in a bit. But so we'll refresh the timer in a bit. Let me just pause that. All right, so I've got a list of questions here. And let me just play some music. Will not overpower it. So I'm going to shoot some questions. There'll be types of questions where it's going to be, things that you can just answer, what your preference is. And there'll be questions where the answer is actually either Angie or Lewis. So for those ones, probably just point at each other. But for the other questions, just shout out your answer. You don't have to consult, just shout out your answer. So for an example, what's your favorite color?
Purple.
Purple and cream. That's interesting because in one of your videos, I thought you liked mustard.
Oh, yeah, I do love mustard. I do love mustard. I love mustard.
So I guess cream. All right, cool. Anyway, so that's just an example. But are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Actually, we might just maybe we'll just remove the music. Okay, so let's get the timer started. All right, what's your favorite book?
Harry Potter.
Roald Dahl. Oh, it's an author.
All right. Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Both cats, obviously. Who snores louder?
Me.
Andrew does.
Me.
Ah, interesting. Favorite food?
Spaghetti bolognese.
Spaghetti bolognese.
Asian. That's a cuisine. Okay, favorite restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh.
Number 39 in the city.
Block 7.
You're not getting many through. Come on. All right. Well, what's a good number of kids to have? It's a
2.
tricky one. Ah, that's good. You guys are in agreement. Who is the messier person?
Me.
Andrew.
Okay, in agreement again. Who is the biggest spender? Oh, we're out of time. But who is the biggest spender?
Andrew.
Me.
Ah, interesting. All right, and now for the final bonus question, is actually it's not a question. Angie, I want you to finish this sentence. Teachers are the best because
They go to school every single day. They rock up.
that's so true. Well, the reason I put this is because I think teachers are the best because you save parents from having to homeschool their kids, which I had to go through, and it was a nightmare. Cool.
I can imagine. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, so to all the viewers out there, I apologize. I think there's a huge lag and the internet connection on Louis and Angie's side wasn't the best. So there's a bit of a time delay. And yeah, I really apologize if, the whole stream wasn't that impressive. But yeah, I'll just like to take this opportunity to thank Angie and Louis for joining us here today. And for those of you who don't know, they have a YouTube channel, and you can also find them on Instagram. They go by the alias the Budget Millennial. Maybe I'll give you guys this opportunity to share a little bit about your YouTube channel. If I can just bring up the details. Yeah, if you could just tell us about the YouTube channel and why I guess we should follow you.
So I started the YouTube channel back in May because we were in lockdown and I was a little bit bored and I needed something to do. But I originally started it just to do like an everyday kind of like vlogging and like a day in the life kind of thing and talking about teaching. But then as I started to do a few more videos and when I started to bring Louis on to feature in some, and because we love to talk about money, we thought that we would share experiences and instill knowledge on other people that we have experienced in our lives and, the journeys that we have gone through. And we just more like did it for entertainment. So that was more the YouTube side, just to share what we have gone through and what we know and hopefully or potentially, give information to people that might be a bit more in layman's terms and not as much jargon and a bit more relatable and realistic. And then for my Instagram, I started that in July because I follow this podcast that is all about like women empowerment and women in money. And, I'm a big believer that, a woman should have her own money and not rely on a man for money. Just a little bit feminist of me, but I'm not a feminist. But it was more to like, for other people to like to see, I don't know, I just wanted to share my money journey and for them to have an understanding of, what I earn, what I spend my money on, how much I spend. And it was more having those connections and conversations. So it wasn't even really about the content. It was connecting with other people, other like-minded people, I guess. And that's why I started the Instagram. And yeah, I love it. And I love connecting with other people, even if I don't know them, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, and that podcast helped a lot because, like, you kind of realize that there's so many people out there that think the same and they're like
that are like you.
Woodwork.
Yeah. And I think that if you can put your own spin on something and your own personal experiences, I think that that's really great as well. So that's why I started YouTube, and Louis wanted to come in and put his 2 cents in as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing about your YouTube channel. Well, you know what? I think it did the job because that's how I connected with you, through your video. Yeah. So for those of you watching, they have some great videos on their YouTube channel. Go check them out. The ones I personally like, which is how I got to know them, was the one where they created a video just to document the whole buying journey that they went through in layman's terms. They in the video you can see that they couldn't even get some of the jargons right, but that's not the point. It's about sharing the experience, which is where they're coming from. So do check them out. Follow, subscribe them on subscribe to their channel on YouTube, and I guess join me in thanking them. So thank you, Angie and Lewis, for joining us here tonight. Your time with us and your experience has been great. Thank you for sharing, and it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having us. Sorry about the lag. We live at the base of like a mountain.
That's all right. That's right. It's all good. We tried our best. In the trial that we did, everything was working fine. But I guess now is peak hour and everyone's using the internet. So yeah, it's not the best, but it's all good. So have a good night. Thank you again for joining us, and to all the viewers out there, thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you in the next Real Story series, probably next month. Take care, have a good night, and see you guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks. Bye.